This is a video walkthrough on this 2020 Coleman 17B. We're going to start up here at the front. You have a 20-gallon propane cylinder located right here. The valve to open it right on top. You have your 12-volt battery located underneath this cover here. That 12-volt battery is going to power things in the inside like your lights and the awning. When you are plugged into shore power, it will charge this battery for you. So something to be mindful of if you are leaving this thing sit for like over a week, over 2 weeks, a month. You're going to want to come out here and undo this strap here and unhook the negative lead on the battery, because your radio and your LP detector will constantly draw some voltage from this battery, which over a period of time of not being plugged in and no use, it will eventually drain that battery. So to prevent that battery from being drained, you could just come out here, take that cover off and disconnect that negative lead, which will keep that battery charged so that when you go camping again, it'll have a full charge and you don't have to worry about leaving it plugged in for a couple hours before to recharge that battery. So up here on the front, this is your 7-way. You're going to plug that in for trailer lights. And you have your safety chains. They just hang in the front. This operates so once you get the ball up there in the back of the truck, you pull this forward and it clips down in place. Make sure that little tab there, those little ears, are clicked down real nice and tight right there. That means it's fully secure. And when it comes time to take it off there, you just pull up on this and pull towards the back of the camper, which will release that ball, and then you can crank this crank and pick it right back up off the hitch. So this thing right here with this cable on it, this is your safety breakaway. What that does is if the trailer were to ever detach from your truck, it'll pull this pin. There's a pin in there. It'll pull that out of there, which will lock up the trailer brakes on the trailer here, which will stop this trailer. That's just, again, in case of worst case scenario, in case of emergency. But you want to make sure that you have this strap. Right now it's kind of just weaved through the chains. I recommend when you hook it to your truck, you get like a D-ring and hook that to where the chains go so that it's separate from the chains. So that way if that chain ever comes unhooked, it won't accidentally pull this breakaway and lock your trailer tires up when they don't need to be locked up. So right over here, you do have a tag with the VIN number on it. And over here on the side, you have 2 stickers here. The top one is your manufacturer information. Again, your VIN number will be over here, and all your weight ratings will be right here. And then below that, you have a tire inflation information. Just make sure that you always inflate the tires to what the manufacturer of the trailer recommends and not necessarily what it says on the sidewall of the tire. Right next to that, you have your city water fill, or your city water connection, and your fresh water fill. In order to fill your fresh tank, you just come over here. This is a 1/4 turn fitting. Put your hose in there, turn your fresh water on, or your city water on. It'll fill this fresh water tank. You can go inside, check the reader to make sure that you don't overfill it. So once it says full, come out here, shut that hose off. You'll have a full fresh tank. If you are somewhere that has city water, you can hook your city water hose directly right here. Make sure you twist that nice and tight, because there is like a rubber O-ring in there, and you don't want this thing just to be sitting there seeping and leaking out of there. So you just want to make sure you twist that on there real nice and tight. But what the city water does is it pressurizes your lines, so that way you can use your faucets in your shower as if you were at home, compared to having to turn the water pump on and draw water from your fresh tank. If you're hooked to city water, you can bypass that whole process and just use your faucets like you would normally. Underneath here, this right here is your fresh tank drain. So if you ever want to drain that fresh tank and you don't want to turn the pump on and run all that water out of there, you can come out here and turn this valve. It's already to the open position. This would be closed. That's open. With that open, it'll drain all that water out of that fresh tank. So that way, if you do fill your fresh tank and you don't use all the water, you don't have to tow all that weight home. You can just open that valve, let that water drain out of there, and save yourself a little bit of fuel. So right here is your 30 amp shore power cord. This is a non-detachable cord. You just flip this door up and this cord just pulls out, and it also just pushes away for storage. You kind of gotta force in there a little bit, but it just closes itself up inside there. And then once you get it all the way in, you can just close this little door. It does have this little trap door on it that you can push up, so that way you can click this larger door here, snap that shut. So if you are somewhere that has, you are staying plugged in, you can minimize the ability of some insects or something to get in there. You can keep that closed so nothing gets on the inside. And again, this is a 30 amp supply. If you ever forget, it is labeled right here on this warning tag. So right next to that, right below it, is going to be your sewage connection with handles for your gray tank and your black tank. The handle on the left hand side here is the gray tank. It does have a gray handle, and the one on the right is your black tank, and it does have a black handle. I recommend always dumping your black tank first and then following it up with the gray tank. That way it'll help clean any debris that may be trapped in that hose out of there, and it'll keep it as clean as possible to help reduce any odors. To take this cap off, it's just a 1/4 turn fitting. It fits right on these ears right here. Just twist it. It's going to be kind of tricky when it's new. Everything's going to be nice and tight, but it'll just twist right off there like that, and you can pull it right off. We do have some water still in there. It's only just antifreeze. We'll make sure that's all the way drained before you receive this unit. But again, always drain the black tank first and follow it up with the gray tank. The rear bumper does have removable end caps. It's a good place to store your sewage hose. That way you're not putting it in a compartment. You can put it right outside here and just push that cap right back in place. On the other side of the back of the trailer here, these red and blue PEX lines here are your low point drains. So when it comes time to winterize, you want to make sure you open up both these, or take those plugs out of there and open those lines up. Let all that water drain out of there before winterization. But if you are going to use it, you want to make sure you leave those plugs in there so that water doesn't drain out. This door here is the exterior access to your water heater. It has a little travel lock that you just flip up, turn 90 degrees, and you might have to use your finger or something to kind of help that out of there. But this is the access to the outside of the water heater. Before you use this water heater, make sure that this plug right here, this is an anode rod. This anode rod will eventually corrode over time. What that anode rod's job is to deteriorate before the tank, because all the debris and everything will be attracted to this anode rod, which will preserve the life of the tank. So after some use, this thing will start to look deteriorated. Don't be alarmed, but once it gets too deteriorated, you are going to want to replace that. So just keep an eye on that. But before you use this water heater, you want to make sure that this is properly installed and tightened down so that you can fill this tank, because you do not want to use this or even turn this thing on until you have it full of water. You will burn up the heating element and you will damage this water heater, potentially having to replace the whole thing. So just make sure that plug's in there nice and tight and you fill this thing with water, and then you can turn it on. Another thing to keep in mind is that when it comes time to winterize this thing, or you ever want to drain it, you want to come up here to this valve right here and open this valve. This valve right here is a pressure relief valve. So once this tank's got water in it, it starts heating it, it's going to build some pressure. And if you ever need to take out that drain plug, you're going to come out here, open this up. That'll relieve the pressure in the tank, and you can safely remove this drain plug here. Right here next to the entry door, you have a DFI protected 110 outlet, 2 different plugs. This is GFI protected, so if this ever gets wet, it will trip. The GFI is going to be inside. You can just reset that. You'll be able to reuse those plugs again. This compartment right here is access to this storage compartment right here. It has a magnetic catch, so you just have to push it close to it, and that magnet will hold it in the upright position. It also has a lock, so no one else can get in there. There's one more thing before we go inside. This unit is pre-wired for a Furrion solar charging panel. That panel would be installed on the roof, and it would trickle charge your 12-volt battery, which would increase the amount of time you can use that battery, so you can dry camp a little longer. This pre-wire, again, it's just a pre-wire. It's not equipped with it. The pre-wire just helps on the installation cost. So if you do want to add a solar charger to the roof, it'll be a little less on installation because it already is pre-wired. So the screen door here is just held with this little latch right there. You just pull it down, it releases the handle, and it releases from this little catch right here. And you do have this little slide bracket here in case you just want the screen door to be open and not letting the insects in. You can just close that. It'll keep all bugs out. So on the inside here, you have the master bed. And then underneath the mattress, if you pick the mattress up, you do have some storage here, underneath right here. This handle right here is a crank for your stabilizer jacks. You can manually crank those down with that crank right there. On the right side, you have a GFI protected outlet right there at the bottom, and one more located up high. And then you have your air conditioner. This is a standard residential window style air conditioner. All your controls are going to be located right there, and it does plug in right over there. Then you have your radio here, standard automotive style radio. All the controls and everything are located to the left of the dial. Above the bunk, you have some nice storage area here. The dinette. The table, the legs fold up. You just push these up right here. Once the table's kind of braced, push that up, those legs will fold up, and then this whole table will rest on those little black pucks you see right there on both sides. It will rest right there, and then you can rearrange the cushions to make it a sleeping area. There's some storage underneath right here. And then you have your GFI, your master GFI right here. So if you do trip any of those other ones, you come in here and you can reset it right here. This is your antenna hookup. So if you ever want to hook and use that antenna, you would come in here, hook it up here, and then hook it to the back of your TV. You turn on this one on the left here to boost your antenna. And then this one over here is for a Wi-Fi booster. The switch right here is for your water heater. Again, you want to make sure that water heater is full of water before you turn this thing on. It will take a little bit of time to heat that water. And then once it does, the longer you use it, the longer it's going to take to regenerate that hot water. So if you can use it in like short bursts, that'll be your best case scenario for the hottest water. But if you're taking a shower, try to kind of keep, don't be in there for too long, because you will run out of hot water. It's only like a 5 or 6 gallon tank, and it does take a little bit of time to reheat that water. Right above here, you have the switch for your water pump. So if you ever want to use the water in that fresh tank, you got to turn that water pump on. That way your faucets in your toilet will work. Right here is the awning controls. You would hold extend to extend the awning out, and retract to pull the awning back in. Above that are your tank readers. Your battery is going to show full when you're plugged in, because it will be charging that battery. And then you have your fresh, your black, and your gray tank. One thing to note about the AC over here is you do have to be plugged into shore power for that AC to work. It is a 110 appliance, so it does require that shore power hookup. Right down here is going to be the furnace, or the electric heating fireplace. That's going to be the heating element for this unit. All the controls are down here at the bottom. They're just touch buttons. You can turn it on. You can adjust the color of the lights, and then temperature and fan speed. Right above that, you have your sink, and then you have your cooktop. You need a lighter to light these. You would just turn it to the light position and light the corresponding burner. They are labeled here for left and right burners. This refrigerator is a 12 volt or a 110 refrigerator, so you do have to be plugged in for this refrigerator to start working. But it does cool down pretty quick, so a couple hours after you plug in, this thing should be up to temperature, and you can start storing food in there. Right above that, you have your microwave. It functions as a standard microwave. All your controls are going to be right here. Then you have your 2 bunks. Each bunk has a light, so you can turn the lights on in the bunk for reading or anything late at night. Right below the bunk here, this right here is your LP/carbon monoxide detector. That's going to detect any leaks in the propane or any carbon monoxide that may be seeping out from somewhere. This thing does run off your 12 volt battery, so if that 12 volt battery in the front is getting low, this thing will beep. So just kind of reminds you to plug in or get that battery charged up. That way this thing can properly read the air. Right below that, you have your fuse panel / breaker box. If you ever trip a breaker, they're all in here. If you ever blow a fuse, they're all right there to the right. And there is a little fan in here, so this thing will make some noise from time to time with that fan coming on, just to keep everything inside there cool. So don't be alarmed if you do hear that noise from that fan. And last but not least, we have the bathroom. You have your toilet with the flush pedal right there in the front. You have a light in here, and then you have your shower with your vent right above the shower. One more thing, all the lights are just push button lights. There's no light switch for these lights. So to operate the lights, you just push the middle of it. It's got that little like button you can actually press down, and once you push that down, that will turn the light on. You have to do that for each light. Just make sure you don't leave any lights on when you're not near the camper, because they will run off that 12 volt battery until that 12 volt battery is dead. And then your fire extinguisher is located right there to the entry, near the entry door, and your smoke detector is right above the entry door. And that will conclude this walk on this 2020 Coleman 17B.